Can't hear the volume.
Hare Krishna, good Maharaj.
The volume is very low. You can't hear the kirtan at all.
Just try it and share it. Now, Maharaj, are you able to hear?
No, it's the same. We can hear it very faintly.
There is a problem with my computer today. I think, previously Scarlet Mataji also told me. I tried to fix it, but I don't know, today it's little from my side. Good Maharaj.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll start the class, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, my humble obeisances to you all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily class. Today, we are very fortunate to have Maharaj on our call today. Maharaj, are we going to continue with Srimad Bhagavatam series, or today is appearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? We are celebrating here in USA. So what do you want us to do? My humble obeisances to you, Srila Prabhupada.
Well, you choose, because I didn't have anything in mind.
Okay, then we'll continue with our Srimad Bhagavatam series, Maharaj. We are at the end of the chapter, last two verses of the chapter of Dhritarashtra quits home. That's 59 and 60.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vidoras tutat ascharyam visamyam kudunandana harsha soka yutas mad nam satirtam nisevakaha. Vidura, being infected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred privilege. Purport. Vidura was astonished to see the marvelous departure of his brother Dhritarashtra as a liberated yogi. In his past life, he was very much attached to materialism. Of course, it was only due to Vidura that his brother attained the desirable goal of life. Vidura was therefore glad to learn about it, but he was sorry that he could not make his brother turn into a pure devotee. This was not done by Vidura because of Dhritarashtra, inimical to the Pandavas, who are all devotees of the Lord. The offense at the feet of a Vaishnava is more dangerous than the offense at the lotus feet of the Lord. Vidura was certainly very liberal to bestow mercy upon his brother, whose past life was very materialistic. But ultimately, the result of such mercies certainly depended on the will of the Supreme Lord in the present life. Therefore, Dhritarashtra attained liberation only, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain to the stage of devotional service. Vidura was certainly very mortified by the death of his brother and sister-in-law, and the only remedy to mitigate such lamentation was to go out on pilgrimage. Thus, Maharaj Yudhisthira had no chance to call back Vidura, his surviving uncle. Does the last verse have a purport?
Yes, Maharaj, yes.
It does? Okay, so we'll stop here and just deal with this one.
Okay. Yes.
Umagyantimirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Aksun Nalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swam Padakam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Tirupam Sagrajatam Sahaganatla Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamsya. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namin Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavani Pasyat Yadesa Parnesa Vanchakalpa Turuvascha Kripa Sindhupe Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. So here, Vidura, you can see how much affection he has for his older brother. He stopped his pilgrimage to come and preach directly to him to wake him out of his slumber of materialistic attachment, which was so long-term that even when there was nothing left of Dhritarashtra's material life, he was simply living as a household dog with the remnants of Bhimadev. His brother saved him from such a degrading situation and gave him a chance. Fortunately, Dhritarashtra was able to accept, because Vidura was his well-wisher, he could see that. Along with his wife, they went to the holy place. Vidura was also there. And he was able to burn his body in the mystic fire of pranayam. And he somehow or other attained a state of liberation. But he didn't get the actual goal of life. Liberation is very easily obtainable if one follows a simple process. And of course, there are certain provisions that make it easy. And Dhritarashtra followed that. First of all, he had nothing left of his material life, so he had nothing to look back towards. And so he focused completely on the mystic yoga system and attained liberation. But unfortunately, as is mentioned here, he could not turn him into a devotee of the Lord, or pure devotee, because the nature of the soul is pure. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Saru Kabunoi Sravanari Siddhi Chitte Kodi Yudon. We are all pure devotees of Krishna. Each and every soul has a pure, loving, eternal relationship with Krishna, but covered by the modes of material nature and the association of the activities that lead one to materialistic desires. And so the soul forgets about or is unable to attain its pure state of existence. And Dhritarashtra could not attain it because of his offenses against the Pandavas. He tried to kill them. So out of all of the offenses that one could commit against another, that is the most severe offense, trying to kill. There's different ways of offending Vaishnavas. It says there's Bhaktivinoda Thakur lists his 6 ways to kill a Vaishnava, to blaspheme a Vaishnava, to become envious of a Vaishnava, to become angry at the Vaishnava, to not give respects to the Vaishnava, and to not feel happy upon seeing a Vaishnava. These are the 6 ways by which one can offend the Vaishnava. And we mentioned them from severity to least severe. But the most severe is because of his attachment to his family members, who were avaricious. That was his sons, headed by Duryodhana and Dushashana. He was doing it, he wanted to do anything to get them in the power of ruling the world. But they weren't destined, and Krishna was there to make sure it didn't happen. whatever the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, that will manifest. The Lord's will and the Lord's desire are same. If the Lord desires something, it will manifest. His will is never thwarted in any condition of life because he is the supreme power and the supreme controller of everything. So whatever he wants, but he works through the material energy with his devotees to fulfill his own desires, which are the benefits of the conditioned souls in the material world. But in this case, he wanted saintly rule in the world. The Lord comes in order to facilitate that saintly rule. And so, using his devotees who were qualified to become, he facilitated this whole situation. And ultimately, that's what actually happened. The Pandavas, headed by Yudhisthira, took the throne. They didn't stay long because the Pandavas also wanted to leave the world and attain to the spiritual world. So, but because they had that position, the next king was Maharaj Parikshit, who ruled the world for many, many years. And he was a powerful saintly king. He was the one that pushed back the effects of Kali Yuga. So Krishna's will is like that. Just like now, Lord Chaitanya's will is that there will be chanting of his holy name in every town and village. That has been prophesied by the Lord himself. In every town and village, my name will be chanted. And so that will come about in due course of time, and the Lord will use his devotees to facilitate that. He'll make it happen through the Sankirtan movement, and he's doing it right now. But there are those who comply with his will, those who remain neutral to his will, and those who work against his will. And so he will work with those who comply with his will to facilitate his desire to see the entire world Krishna conscious. And it will happen in due course of time. It's already in the developing stages right now. And so whatever the Lord wants, it happens. And so he wanted saintly rule on the throne, and therefore it happened. And despite Dhritarashtra's intrigue and the intrigue of his sons, although they were powerful, they were in power, they had usurped the throne, still the Lord arranged for his devotees to win the war and take over the rule of the world. Because when there's saintly rule, everyone prospers. When there is rule that are based on selfishness, greed, and nepotism, and false sense of pride, all of these things bring about sinful activity in the world, and that is the cause of suffering for everyone. So when there is saintly rule, there is people will flourish, and they'll have everything they need to gain material happiness, and at the same time practice the goal of life, which is self-realization. Even the animals, the trees, the birds, the plants, the rivers, all of Earth's properties, living entities, will also prosper when there is saintly rule in the world. And so that was the Lord's arrangement. So now we see here that Dhritarashtra, he was fortunate, although he didn't attain to the perfectional stage of life because of his offenses against the Pandavas. He at least got liberation, and then it says after many births, he will come to the stage of devotional service. So sometimes people argue that liberation is higher than devotional service. But actually it is not, is understood that devotional service begins on the liberated platform. Anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already liberated. Although one may not understand how that works, is that devotional service is the internal energy of the Lord. which means it has nothing to do with the material energy. And therefore, one who is connected with that devotional service is under the control of the internal energy of the Lord, which is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Although my consciousness might not be in the stage of pure liberation, still, because I'm engaged in devotional service, I'm on the platform by which the consciousness will finally develop if I stay within that process of pure devotional activity. And then one will achieve the ultimate goal of life, pure love of God. So liberation, there are many types of liberation. Even the demons get liberation. They get sahuja mukti, where they merge into the bodily effulgence of the Lord, and they enjoy some temporary relief of material existence. They get the happiness of no material suffering, but they don't get the happiness of bhakti or the loving relationship with the Lord, because ultimately life's happiness ends or perfects itself in a relationship. When there's relationship, and that relationship is the foundation for spiritual existence, that is our relationship with the Supreme Lord, and that is the perfection of life. But those, the demons and even the impersonalists and others who attain various types of liberation, they don't achieve that ultimate form of happiness. They get some freedom from material existence. They don't get chit or complete knowledge, and ananda is completely absent in their life. Real ananda. Just freedom from material suffering is not happiness. It's a form of relief, just like you can't say, well, because I ate today, I became satisfied. Yes, that's true. You ate, you satisfy your hunger. And so the pains of hunger are gone. But that doesn't mean that you achieved happiness. Happiness comes by way of relationship. And relationship is ultimately understood as our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that can only be facilitated by the process of devotional service. When Krishna explains, Manmana Baba Mad Bhakto, Mam Niji Mam Namaskuru, Mami Vaishyasi Satyam Te, Patijana Priyo Sime. He says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage to me. And then he ends by saying, surely, he gives the word surely, you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're very dear to me. And so the Lord gives the formula. These are the process. These four principles comprise the entire process of devotional service. As you unpack these four, you come to 15 different types of activities, which Krishna mentions in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he describes the activities that make up devotional service, which are pretty much power-pointed in these four principles. And then you can take those 15 principles and expand them further into 64, which are mentioned in the Nectar of Instructions. So all of the activities of devotional service are given to us. But the essence is to always think of Krishna, serve Krishna, to worship him, and offer prayers and obeisances to the Lord. These comprise the essence of the process of devotional service. And Dhritarashtra will get a chance for that after many, many lives, because liberation, as it says, therefore Dhritarashtra attained liberation only. It probably uses the word only, like it's some, some compromise, some lesser form of achievement, and it is. So, and some people think, like if you talk to many spiritualists, religionists, and even people in other traditions, they use the word salvation instead of liberation, which means they're actually the same thing. It's another name for the same thing. And they say that that is the ultimate goal in life. But actually, love of God is actually the goal of it. Because love is the principle by which one becomes fully satisfied in their existence. And only when one attains to the loving service of the Lord, and as that love grows, then one becomes completely full in all of aspects of life, and then has achieved perfection, and doesn't look for or even hanker after, or doesn't even notice anything else. One becomes happy simply in loving relationship with Krishna. And that is the soul's proclivity, that is the soul's nature. Unfortunately, these offenses block one from achieving that. And here we have this example of the offenses against the Pandavas by Dhritarashtra. So one has to be very careful in execution of devotional service, because if we commit offenses, we will slow down our process. And if the senses become Vaishnava apparats, then they block one's progress. One's progress is actually stopped at that point. It's not lost, but it's stopped. And at that point, one has to ameliorate for those offenses, make some kind of amends, and then move forward and then regain one's position in bhakti like that. So one should be very careful. Therefore, when Prabhupada used to give initiation, he summed up the process by saying, chant the holy names of the Lord and avoid the offenses. So this is the whole process. So when you want to boil it down to a very sentence-like definition of bhakti, it means to chant the holy names of the Lord, glorify the Lord, avoid the offenses that are mentioned, both offenses to the Lord, offenses to the holy name, offenses to the deity, offenses to the Vaishnavas, offenses to people in general. Avoid these offenses and follow the principles as given in the scriptures for execution of one's bhakti. And then the process becomes nice. So this avoiding of offenses is a very critical thing that needs to be consciously aware. One has to be very consciously aware not to commit offense, particularly towards other Vaishnavas. And that can be done in different ways. So one has to avoid that. We mentioned the 6 ways how these offenses can manifest, as given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And here, and this is Dhritarashtra's black spot on his white cloth, is that he tried to kill the Pandavas for his own selfish interest, not so much his interest, but he was so attached to his family members, sons, who were all very avaricious, greedy, and mimical, and were, doing everything they could to gain rule of the world. Because he had this attachment to his sons no matter what. He didn't care what they were or what they were doing. They were his sons, didn't matter. So that attachment didn't allow him to achieve bhakti, but at least he got liberation. So Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, both feeling some loss of his brother, and then he left the place of pilgrimage. Delight in that he helped him achieve at least liberation, which was the best he could achieve. And that was only due to the mercy of Vidura. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for the class. Dear devotees, any questions or comments or realizations, you can please go ahead now. And please turn on your cameras if possible. It would be nice to take your darshan. And Maharaj also can see all of us. Thank you for the class, Maharaj. So I was thinking, when we are talking about following the desire of the Lord, So being neutral means what is being neutral, Guru Maharaj? Yeah, I didn't understand that part.
And not working for or against Lord Chaitanya's movement.
So what will the destination will be then?
Well, if you work against, then you are, demoniac in nature. you're exhibiting demoniac characteristics. If you work for, you're a Vaishnava. But if you're neutral, you're pretty much either ignorant or don't know the importance of it.
So they just will be in the cycle of birth and death always based on their karma.
Obviously,
yeah.
Because there are people who are just ignorant of who Lord Chaitanya is, why he's come, and what is it, and what is our relationship with him. So that's the majority of the people. Very few are working for him. Very few are working against him. The majority are pretty much oblivious. Just going on with their materialistic life.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Dheeranath Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances unto you. Maharaj, I have a question. So from the verse, it appears that, or we can conclude that the devotees of the Lord are more merciful than the Lord, because Vidura was able to grant more, but the Lord, in the Prabhupada writes that ultimately it was the will, Krishna kind of restrained further. So that's why he was only able to get liberation, because he was anemical. So it's only because of Vidura he was able to achieve this destination. Would that be the correct understanding, Maharaj?
Yeah. The Lord, the Pandavas were pure devotees of the Lord, and they had given their lives. They were never, in any time in their life, working outside of the will of the Lord. They were his chosen family members. And Krishna had very intimate relationships with all of them, especially Yudhisthira and Arjuna particularly. So the devotees of the Lord are very dear to the Lord. Everyone's dear to the Lord, but devotees are more dear because they adhere to the desire of the Lord. And they live for that. So the Lord will not excuse offenses against his devotees. You can't approach the Lord if you offend the Vaishnavas. The Lord, well, you have to approach the offended Vaishnavas.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, Lord Chaitanya even makes that comment. He says, those who offend the Lord's devotees and chant the holy name of the Lord, that holy name will destroy them.
Thank you, Maharaj. And Maharaj, another, it's just a sequential question. So Vidura was insulted in the assembly, and Vidura then left for the place of pilgrimage. That's what we learn in the second canto, and also following more discussions in the third canto. And then he meets Uddhava, and he inquires about the well-wishing, how, about the different relatives and how the Yadus and the Pandavas are doing. And then the conversation begins. So at what point he again came back? So did he then comes back to Hastinapur after that conversation?
Yeah, he did. He mentions that in the beginning of this particular chapter, that he knew the situation in the palace in Hastinapur, and he knew, so he came back to, particularly only for one reason, to try to awaken Dhritarashtra to his situation and guide him towards, detachment from it. Yeah, he knew it. He came back only for that reason. And then, of course, after Dhritarashtra left his body, then he went again on pilgrimage.
And it is after, then again he goes to pilgrimage, he meets Uddhava afterwards.
I can't say for sure, but I think you're right. Because I think it's only Maitreya in the beginning.
Okay, Maharaj. And Maharaj, last we were talking about liberation. So here, Dhritarashtra achieved the Brahma Jyotir. His destination was impersonal Brahma Jyotir liberation. Is that right understanding?
I didn't read anywhere what kind of liberation he got.
Okay.
It doesn't mention, at least I can't recall reading anything in that chapter or what type of liberation he achieved. He didn't get Vaishnav liberation. He got some kind of impersonal liberation.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Mataji.
Thank you. Dear Guru Maharaj, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. On this subject of Dhritarashtra's liberation, I confess that I'm still not clear what kind of liberation that is and how Prabhupada is writing. After many such lives of liberation, one gets the chance of devotional service. So my understanding is very meager, of course, but I was under the impression that even liberation is not a steady state. One falls down again and takes birth again over here. So does it mean he kept falling down and then going back to liberated state, and then after many such lives, then only he'll get the chance of devotional service?
Just take what Prabhupada says. Don't
Okay.
try to figure it out, because if you're going to try to figure it out, you'll speculate on what is actually happening.
Okay.
It says that he got liberation, and many such liberated births, he'll come to the point of both. So you might have to read some of the commentaries on this particular section by the acharyas to find out more of the details. But the Bhagavatam doesn't give it, at least in this particular chapter.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Any questions, comments, dear devotees?
I have another question, Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhupada.
Maharaj, is Sarupya Mukti means living in the same planet as the Lord, which is the Vaikuntha Loka. Sarupya is, the same form as the Lord. And Salokya means that living where the Lord is living in one of the Vaikuntha planets. But isn't both of the Muktis the same? Because if in Vaikuntha you will have 400 forms and you are also staying on the same planet. So both the liberations, aren't they the same then?
No, but just because you attain Salokya doesn't mean you get Sarupya also.
But then, Maharaj, if they are staying on the same planet, then wouldn't all the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka will have 400 forms?
Yeah, but it's not the same form as the Lord. The Lord has a distinguishing four-headed form, which is unique. I know you're really getting into philosophical speculation now. What that type of liberation looks like. If you want to continue in that way, then just do some research. But I don't see it. So each of these liberations are categories distinctly. Trilokya, Samipya, Sarshti, Sarupya.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yeah, they're categories separately. Doesn't mean they don't overlap, but still there is a unique quality about each of the liberations that is distinct from the other. Sridevi has her hand up, I think.
Mataji, you have another question?
Yes, please. I'm still mulling over this various types of liberation, Maharaj. Of course, for devotee just simply wants to perfect his or her devotional service and go back to Krishna. But when we talk about all these types of liberation, does it mean the impersonalists actually are praying for this kind of liberation? I want to be on the same planet, I want to have the same form, I want to have the same opulence, etc. Do they actually set that as a goal for impersonal liberation?
No, these are Vaishnava liberations. When one engages in devotional service but hasn't reached perfection, they attain these types of liberations. It's not for the impersonalists.
Okay.
The personalists get two types of liberation. They merge into the bodily effulgence of the Lord, or they merge into the body of the Lord. And both are temporary. One has to, because there is no devotional service in these liberated states, they again have to leave that after a certain period of time and come back down to the material world and again take up usually mode of goodness activity.
So those who do not perfect their Krishna consciousness, but are still in the devotional service line, will attain one of these Vaishnava liberations, 5 types of liberation.
That's mentioned in the 3rd canto, generally, yeah.
I see.
Same planet as the Lord, the same form as the Lord. But even there is one demon who was Agasura. He got Sarupya Mukti. He got a very high form of liberation for a demon. Putana also got a very high form. So even demons may attain to some higher state if they approach the Lord in a certain way. Agasura knew at the time of death, he saw the form of the Lord in his mind just before he died. And meditating on that form, he left the body, and so he got Sarupya Mukti. That's mentioned in that particular pastime. Because he thought of the form of the Lord, although he tried to kill the Lord, still, he died with that form in his mind.
And those who perfect their devotional service, they get reinstated in their constitutional position in the spiritual world, whether it's a butterfly or a bee or a river or a tree or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's two realms of the spiritual world. One can attain, one worships the Lord in awe and reverence, in the mood of Aishwarya Bhav, seeing the Supreme Lord as the absolute principle of devotion. One can attain to the Vaikuntha planets, the spiritual realm, where they can serve the Lord in one of two rasas, either dasya ras, which means servitor, or sakya ras, but not on an equal level with the Lord in sakya. It says that in Vaikuntha there are 2.5 rasas: neutrality, dasya, and sakya, that is subordinate to the Lord. In the Vrindavan realm, which is what Lord Chaitanya is giving us a chance to attain Sri Vrindavan Dham, there are the 5 rasas, and one can attain to one's eternal position in one of these rasas if one perfects their devotional service in the mood of worshiping the Lord in separation from the Lord, as taught by Lord Chaitanya. Ayi nanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishrame bhavanduro vipaya tavapada pankaja stita duli sadrisham vichintaya yugaitam nimeshena chakshusha pravashaitam sunyayitam jagat sarvam govindaviramehiname. This is the mood of worshiping the Lord in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And then at one stage, one will reach their realization of their relationship with the Lord, even while they're still in the present body, and will want to serve the Lord according to that relationship, either as a gopi, as a friend, as a parent.
So all this is described in the 3rd canto, Guru Maharaj? You said
No.
it's described.
No, these are not described in the 3rd canto. Vaikuntha is described in the 3rd canto. It gives you a little description of the spiritual world.
Okay.
But the whole Bhagavatam is more or less focusing on serving the Lord with awe and reverence until you come to the 10th canto.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Nice question. Namrata Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This chapter has been really wonderful, Guru Maharaj. One big lesson that I could see here, that apart from having so many pure devotees around Dhritarashtra, like Bhishma Dev, then Vyasadev as his own father, then Vidura as his brother, Dhritarashtra could not give up his greed for power, or he could not take up the association of even pure devotees. So how the person can be, I mean, this is Maya, and the anarthas within ourselves, they are like so inclined that Maya just sneaks in. I mean, I'm not asking the question, I'm just expressing my realization that when your anarthas are so strong, Maya can sneak in, even having so pure devotees around you.
Yeah, that's true. That's the nature of material attachment. I mean, look how many people have the association with Krishna when he was personally here.
Yes.
Thousands, hundreds of thousands, but only between 1 and 200 could actually recognize who he was. And many worked against him. It's the nature of material attachment. It becomes so strong that one cannot understand anything else.
Yes, Maharaj. So there was one very nice statement recently I came across, which is said by Radhanath Maharaj. When he talks about anarthas, that anarthas are he says that anarthas can be seen as opportunities to be serious in Krishna consciousness and take shelter of Krishna. So this is very nice statement. If anarthas are not there, we could at most be the mediocre devotees. But when anartha is there, you should make it as the best opportunity. This was very profound statement. I really like. At the moment of temptations, they are like blessed opportunities to choose between the Maya and Krishna. So
Yeah, there. When one is put in a situation where they're overwhelmed or being harassed by the material energy, the greater opportunity to take shelter. You see that preaching in jails. And they don't have any chance. They don't have much choice. So either they take the Krishna conscious when Krishna conscious appears in their life, or they stay in their materialist degraded lifestyle. But we want Krishna conscious, but at the same time, we're not willing to make the sacrifice to get it. And so we somehow or other take shelter of our material life, friends, families, food, going to the beach. Kind of, we have some facilities that allows us to somehow or other feel good, although we are still in Maya.
Maharaj, I could remember the offering made by one of the devotees of Ujjain in your Vyasa Puja there. He was saying that one of the inmates in the jail, I think, he said that at the last day he was sentenced to death, and last day he was very joyful. You preached him, and he was reading and he desired to have a next life of a devotee where he could preach, and he was dancing and going at the last day to the.
Yeah, I told that it was about a situation in one jail in Europe, in Asia, actually, not in Europe, in Asia. I told this story, and that person reiterated that particular point in the Vyasa Puja. Yeah.
Right.
Pointing out the power of devotional service.
Yes, Maharaj.
He lost all fear and he had no fear at the time of death, and he had hope that in my next life I'll be a devotee.
It's such a transformation, Guru Maharaj. I almost had tears in my eyes. I mean, this is such a transformation.
Yeah, I heard this story personally by the person who was in the jail, who actually helped that person come to that stage. This devotee was a chaplain in the jail. And he told me the story directly. And so I repeated that story earlier in a lecture, and then the devotee mentions it again in the Vyasa Puja.
Yeah, wonderful, Maharaj. That was wonderful.
Yeah, so don't go to jail just to have yourself a miserable situation so you can surrender completely. Surrender completely without having to go through all of it. That's why Queen Kuti, she's praying, my dear Lord, give me some calamities. I'm surrounded by aristocratic relatives. I have so many friends. Everything is nice from the material point of view. But this is just makes it harder for me to actually call out to you with feeling. So you want to feelingly call out to the Lord, you can do it out of knowledge, or you can do it out of circumstance. Better to do it out of knowledge that at any time, this material world can crush me. I can walk outside and slip on the ground, hit my head, and that's the last thing I did. That happens. Some drunk is driving in the car and you're driving, this drunk crashes into you, and that's the last thing that you experience. It's just the world is a very dangerous place. You're riding in an airplane, you don't know if the engines are going to make it or not. You're eating food, sometimes you're not even sure how healthy it is. People are dying from eating. You go to the doctor and you have faith that the doctor will cure you, and he gives you something and you die. The medicine that he gives you, you pay for it, you pay for your own death. The whole world is full of calamities. You don't pay attention to where you're going, you trip, you fall, and you can break your leg, you break your head and die. Many people fall down the stairs. That's the last thing that happens to them. It's a very dangerous place. So unless you wake up to that fact, then Krishna will maybe have to give you some difficult situation to wake you up. But do it the easy way. Do it out of knowledge, not out of calamity.
Yes, very true, Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you for awakening us for all this. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Very nice discussion. Yes, Maharaj, many people, they know all these things, but they don't want to accept it publicly, or they just fake their feelings, and they just say that, okay, it's like this, what can we do? And just go on with their lives. They don't want to accept this truth and do some changes in their lives. So that's what I see around here. So many people. Yeah.
Dangerous place. Padam, yeah, we padam. Danger at every step, the scriptures say. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, the material world, no place for a gentleman.
Yeah. Silpesh Prabhu, you have a question? Mataji, I'll take you later.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I totally agree. The world is a very, very dangerous place, but at the same time, it seems like Krishna is protecting us with every single step we take. You know, like you said, a million things could happen to us right in this moment, but it doesn't happen to us. So there must be some form of protection coming from somewhere.
Well, he'll protect you if you take shelter of him. And if you don't take shelter, then you have to take shelter of the material energy. And that's not protection. But he's there when you take his shelter. He's protecting up to a certain point, but when you take shelter, then you're fully protected. That shelter is devotional service. When you're in devotional service, you're in the Daivi Prakriti, the Daivi Shakti. You're in the spiritual energy. But if you're 50% in and 50% out, then you'll get 50% protection.
Sridevi Mataji, you have a question?
Thank you. Dear Guru Maharaj, in the olden days, all the kings, the saintly rulers at least, they had very wise and intelligent ministers to give them good advice, to guide them. They were the Brahmana class who were guiding the Kshatriya class. So, but Dhritarashtra, in spite of, as Namrata said, having so many exalted personalities, in fact, he even knew Krishna is God, and still he could not take good advice. So, is it that unless rulers are guided by the Brahminical class, who are themselves strictly following Vedic culture, Daivi Varnashram, it's not going to be proper management of society? Can we conclude like that?
Well, Krishna explains the ideal society. Four classes of men. They're meant to, each has a particular role within society according to their nature. And that nature is their given nature upon birth. And it develops through education and through activity. So yeah, that's the materialistic society. Now, you don't have anything like that in today's society. Everything is topsy-turvy. You have fourth class, you have demons ruling, not only fourth class people, but people who are demoniac in nature. And they're in control of the population in certain areas of the world. And people are suffering.
Can we extrapolate that to present day society and say that for ISKCON projects or ISKCON initiatives, apart from a competent Kshatriya leader, we also need Brahmins to guide our sannyasis, our leaders of society, and we need their wisdom, their divine instructions to guide us in order to carry out.
Isn't that happening now?
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to confirm and understand. Even initiatives that devotees take up, we should be taking the advice and guidance of the sannyasis. Even if we start an initiative, let's say, we need the guidance of senior devotees to help us, right?
You know that. Why are you asking me?
Just confirming. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. That's an obvious statement, unless you're asking it for the benefit of everybody. I think you're well aware of that.
Well, actually, yes, I'm very aware of that. But many youngsters, they just maybe think that we should be bold and daring and do things and somewhat maybe in the mode of passion. So just
Why do we accept the statements of the ignorant? We accept the statements of the Shastra, of the Guru. Everybody, there's so many opinions about how things should go on. And we don't care. We take the instructions of the pure devotees. That's the foundation by which we follow and organize everything, not by somebody's whimsical.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
One time I went to a Rathi Yatra, and so I was in the question and answer tent, and as soon as I sat down, two young men came up and they asked me questions. And I was referring to the authority to give the answers. They didn't want that. They didn't want to hear any about any authority. They wanted my opinion. And I told them my opinion is what's based on the authority. And they got disgusted and they walked away. So who cares about such people? They're ignorant. They want you to accept ignorance in the name of some kind of, what is that? What is the word? Some kind of equality. False equality. How will you know unless you hear from authority? This is the age of, Kali has taught everyone, throw out authority, accept your own opinion. You are intelligent. You can understand what's right. Live your life in that way. That's the main voice of Kali, telling us, forget authority. Authority is shown to lead you to so many problems. Become your own authority. You understand your situation. That's Kali. Therefore, people question the authority. They question the spiritualness. They question, people who have proven that what they say and what they do is in line with true religious principles. That's everywhere, but we don't care about that. We just throw that out. Mahajano yena kata sapanta. You have to follow in the path of the great soul. Then you will understand. Knowledge comes from above and not from below. Aropanta and avaropanta. Panta means path or way. Avaro means going up. No, aroha means going down, and avaroha means going up. Speculative knowledge, empirical knowledge is going up, and enlightened knowledge is coming down from the perfect authority. Therefore, Krishna is the perfect authority, and that knowledge is transferred from Krishna to the Sampradaya, and then from disciple to Guru, all the way down to the present authority. So we can say that what Srila Prabhupada has said is what Krishna said. We don't need anything else to confirm why we do what we do, how we understand things. We have the authority, it's perfect.
So can we say that the first generation of disciples, that means Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples, was so successful in carrying out, in doing whatever programs, because they strictly followed Srila Prabhupada's directives, instructions, guidance, and that's how they were successful?
No. A few did, not everybody. And the few that did, they were empowered to spread Krishna consciousness. Okay, any more questions? Because we're getting over the hour.
Yes, Maharaj, I have one question based on this Brahmanical initiation or qualities. So recently, when I was speaking to senior devotees here, most of them are saying that if you are really interested in deity worship or deity services, then only you require Brahman initiation. Otherwise, you can go back to Godhead even with first initiation. So what are your comments, Maharaj, on that?
Well, that's a debatable subject.
Okay.
Going back to Godhead is not a mechanical process. Comes by way of the mercy of the Lord, but there are principles that elevate our consciousness to that stage. For instance, you can take different statements. For instance, Srila Prabhupada told one of his first disciples, Jadharani, that first initiation is like, basic education, and second initiation is the complete education, using the analogy of grade school and university. So Prabhupada said, and then he concluded, second initiation is the complete initiation, because then you get Guru Gayatri. You get Gayatri, and Gayatri is called the Guru Mantra. This first initiation and second initiation process was adopted recently because people were not qualified, and therefore they used to jump up to Brahminical status, although they were not qualified. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati divided the process of initiation into two, Harinam and Brahminical. Harinam is more like preliminary. Yeah. So whether you go back, you can go back to Godhead with first initiation, but that is up to Krishna to see if you actually have reached pure devotional service.
But if we
But-
have,
But the spiritual master has told us that we have to go through this process of first and second initiation. It's called Upanaya Samskara. It's one of the 16 samskaras. Upanaya refers to Brahminical. The Prabhupada's giving us what the Shastras say. But you might say there are exceptions. There are people who can go back to Godhead without even getting initiated. But that's extremely rare. But it's possible.
Maharaj, yeah. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you.
You understand the point?
Yeah.
So we should not think, I don't need second initiation. Don't think like that.
I see many senior devotees here, they didn't take second initiation, they are continuing since so long. If we like, I'm a new person, I just got initiated just 2 years back, and if I'm talking about second initiation, they look at me like, why this Mataji is rushing, and she's very eager to get second initiated and do a lot of services. Why she's so much like that? So
That eagerness is good. That eagerness is good, but then qualify yourself.
yeah.
May be eager, but you have to have the qualifications.
Mhm.
You should be exemplifying the Brahminical qualities. Not that when I get Brahminical initiation, then I develop Brahminical qualities.
Mhm. Yes, Maharaj.
Brahminical qualities are the qualities of the mode of goodness, generally.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Yeah, dear devotees, any more questions or comments before we end the call?
I think we have to end because I'm getting some
Yes, Maharaj.
guests are coming in a
I
few
just
minutes.
tomorrow's class. Tomorrow's class, Thursday, is with Bhakti Sangha Charlotte group, and the timing is just 20 minutes later from the regular time, 12:20 p.m. UK time. And for India, it is 4:50 p.m. And the verse number is 7th canto, first chapter, verse number 2, 7:12.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you,
See you
everyone.
tomorrow.
Yes, sure, Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Maharaj ki jai. Thank you, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. We are like little blind kittens. I don't know how we are going to survive without daily classes, honestly. This is my honest and humble plea to you.
You
And
better survive.
Thank
I
you very much.
mentioned that we were very happy to see your Vyasa Puja celebration in Ujjain in a grand way. And it was very overwhelming experience. Just seeing the recording, Maharaj, I don't know how I'll feel when I'll be there in actually in person someday. But yeah, it was very nice.
Oh,
We were all
exactly.
deciding to come next year to Ujjain Guru Maharaj so that at least we will learn from those great exalted souls how to honor you and how to do Vyas Puja nicely.
Yes.
See, this is the glory of Bhakti Charu Swami, how he treated his disciples. The quality of a spiritual master is the quality of their disciples.
I was thinking that Guru Maharaj, that Krishna himself arranged such a beautiful Vyasa Puja for you because you are a pure devotee of the Lord and we are not up to the standard to do it so nicely. So Krishna himself arranged that great exalted devotees do a very nice Vyasa Puja for you.
I think you were a little bit of a fanatic. Anyway.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.